Hi there, Prairie Plant Girl here. This morning I'm out in my front garden and I'm going on a little treasure hunt. I have some Muscari or grape hyacinth that's been planted here. It's remnants from before I had changed this over into more of a rock garden area. And they're coming up, but I've noticed the last few years they've been blooming very little. So I think it's time to get them pulled out and divide them. So I'm curious to see what's under there, and it's going to be interesting because it's right in the rocks. So come along and let's get this started. So grape hyacinth is a spring blooming bulb, and it gets these really tiny little clusters of kind of purpley blue flowers that come up almost in a spike in the spring. They're not actually related to the hyacinth. That's actually technically Muscari is what it's called, but it kind of resembles a tiny little hyacinth, and I think that's why it's gotten that common name. They multiply pretty quickly. They're a great little bulb. They come very early in the spring, and they're very hardy even in this climate. And I can see already there's some right at the surface here. They were barely under the rocks. But when they get crowded, they stop blooming. So you can see here they've sent up the green foliage. They send that up in the fall, but they won't bloom in the fall. And then they'll bloom in the spring. So the foliage comes up in the fall, and then, if I remember, it dies back, and then the blooms come up, and they're more prominent in the spring, just a little bit of foliage. So you can see how very crowded they are, just piled on top of each other. So when they get crowded, they just stop blooming. So this was actually a flower bed that ran through this side of the yard before, when it was grass and flower beds up here. So these have just stuck around, and I've always just left them here at the edge of the pathway. But they're overcrowded now, and it's time to take them out and divide them. Oh, this ground is hard. So I'm going to pull them all out, and then I picked up a beautiful bag of tulips. I'll show that to you. But I think these will look beautiful interplanted with the tulips. They come up at a little bit different times, but the tulips will help hide some of the foliage from these in the spring once the flowers are gone. And any overlapping color will just be beautiful. So you can see, like, these aren't a very big bulb. They're pretty small, and that's what they are. Let's see here, like that would be the biggest size that you would probably find in these, at least for the ones that are hardy here anyways. So they're smaller bulbs. So if you go to buy some in the store, don't be surprised. Don't think, oh, these are just little bulbs, they won't do anything. That's a little one. So I'm going to finish getting these dug out of the ground, and then I'm going to take them to the backyard and find a spot for them there. So this is just my view as I'm walking in from the backyard. You can probably hear the fountain in behind me, and that's the shade garden I've redone this year, if you've seen the videos for that. So this is just looking the other direction, and up behind me is also my kitchen window. So I thought this would be a nice spot. Sometimes here the spring mornings are pretty cool, spring days are cool, so I thought I'd make a nice little planting here. Before these shrubs and things leaf out, I'll have a nice cheery little display of some tulips and Muscari. Now, I know I said in a previous video that I had lots of tulips and lots of bulbs and I didn't really need any more, but I was in buying garlic and I saw this combination and I just couldn't resist it. So I picked up 14 bulbs. I think they were $12. Yeah, $13 for the 14 bulbs. They're nice big bulbs. I'll give you a better look when I get them out of the package. And they're mid-spring flowering bulbs, so they'll come in. They'll have the Muscari come up, and then these will come up and cover up some of that foliage, because the foliage from the Muscari can be pretty full and a little bit ratty when the flowers are gone, at least in my opinion. So that the tulips can come up and do their thing, and then they'll die back, and by then hopefully the Muscari has died back a little bit in this area as well. But I'm going to get these all planted in together. I think they'll be really nice together. Okay, so I think that's a nice big space. Let me just show you these bulbs before I forget. Sorry, I know lighting's bad, but see, that's a nice big tulip bulb. It's firm. It's like, I mean, I don't want to squish it, but it's firm to the touch. There's no bruising. There's no mold. The paper is pretty much entirely intact. It's a good, healthy bulb, and that's what you're looking for when you're shopping for bulbs. So, and leave the paper on when you plant them. And again, the pointy end up, and you can kind of see the root end or the basal end at the bottom there. So you want them planted up. Now, quite often with tulips, they'll say to go about 6 inches deep. And when they say that, they mean to the base of the bulb. They don't mean 6 inches on here. But once again, like I've said before, here in this cold climate, I find if I can plant them just a little bit deeper, that's a good thing. Now in this spot here, I'm not as worried about that. This spot here, almost guaranteed will have heavy snow cover. Just I know from years past, so I'll try and get down at least 6 inches deep, but I'm not gonna get too concerned with going deeper. Now I'm hoping, there's rhododendrons beside me, I'm hoping that I'm not encroaching in their root zone too much. It has been so dry this summer. We've had 1.5 inches of rain in the last, I think, 3 days. And it's still dry underneath here. Now there is an ash tree and the rhododendrons, so they're going to be sucking up that moisture. And the tulips won't mind that. They won't mind having the shrubs and the tree here taking some of that moisture in the summer and leaving them a little bit drier. They're happy with that. I thought this area was better. I'm gonna have to go get some compost. I just went and grabbed my bucket of what's left of my last sifting of compost here, and I'm gonna just scoop this right into it because this is such heavy clay. Try and mix it in there with what I have for compost and break it up a bit. Okay, so I know my trowel is about 6 inches deep or long to this part, so it's pretty close to 6 inches everywhere. And I got looking at how much mulch I was pulling off, so I'm thinking they'll be at least 7 inches by the time I get them in there with the mulch back on. So I think that'll be good. So I'm going to start putting them in. So like I said before, you don't want straight and tidy rows for your tulips. So I try to just kind of jiggle them around a little bit so they're offset. So when I put them in, I'm just giving them a little wiggle. Make sure they're seated well. The package said to space them 4 inches apart. That spot looks a little shallow. 4 inches apart. And I've done between, I'd say, 3 and 6 inches. I'll stick one more back here. So now the Muscari, as you saw, was growing almost on the surface. So I'm going to cover these up. Now I went to grab water so that I could water these the soil down and get it tramped down, and I just realized I forgot to put bone meal in with the bulbs. So I'm just going to sprinkle some on top this soil, and then hopefully it'll work its way down through the soil when I water it in there. So there, I just wanted to give that a good watering in before I continued filling the hole. Try and work the dirt down a little bit. Once this settles, I think we'll be close to 1 to 2 inches deep, and that's where I'm going to put these Muscari. So you can see they're in big clumps here, and I'm just going to kind of work them with my fingers and kind of work them apart. Now, Muscari is beautiful planted in big drifts, so you want them fairly close together. But like I said before, once they get too close, then they kind of stop blooming, or they bloom a lot less. So I'm just going to take them, same thing. I mean, these ones are pretty easy to tell because I just dug them up and they have the growth on the top there already, but you just want to make sure the kind of pointed end is up and the root end is down, and it's usually a flatter spot there. And if you're not sure, lay it on its side, it'll figure its way out. Now you can see I just kind of tossed a bunch down, and now I'm just kind of pushing them in so they stand up pretty much where they fell. Spreading them out a little bit more maybe, and that's just what I'm going to do. So these came out of a small, I don't know, what was it, like 10 by 10 centimeter kind of area. And I've spread them out here over, let's say, almost a meter by half a meter. So try and get the bigger ones spread a little bit more evenly. These are a pretty hardy bulb, and they're not going to be too concerned about where you put them. I hit clumps of them quite often when I'm planting perennials and things, and I just drop them back in the holes and they come up again. They're very prolific in reproducing and naturalizing, but I don't find them weedy. Maybe in a warmer area they are, I don't know. But for here, they're a nice little reliable bulb. As I said, they were growing like pretty much at the soil surface out front, and I've planted them about 2 inches. Once they get mulch on them, they'll be about 3 inches deep. But I'm not concerned about that. A lot of bulbs, when they're planted shallowly, they'll split and divide a lot faster, and then you end up with a lot of young bulbs, and that can be another reason that I wasn't getting a lot of flowers. So this way, when they're put down just a little bit deeper, I mean, you don't want to go crazy, they should be planted, you know, at least an inch down anyways. And if you get them just a little bit deeper, then there seems to be just that little bit more pressure around the bulb from the soil, and I don't know, they just don't seem like they split as quickly, which can also help, you know, keep a healthy bulb that you get more blooms out of. So, and I'm not worried, like you saw that had foliage on it, and I'm just gonna bury it all down there. It may slow it down a little bit, but like I said, those are tough bulbs. I'm not gonna stress about it too much. So I'm gonna water these in and then replace the mulch, and then I can just sit back and wait for the blooms in the spring. That's the fun part about the fall bulbs, right? You plant them in there, and it's like you've made yourself a little treat for spring after those cold white winters. So there, you can barely tell I was there, but come spring, that'll be a beautiful burst of blooms. Like I said, it's right outside my kitchen window, so I should be able to see it even when the days are too cool and want to come outside. So that's one of the other great things about those spring bulbs. They come up, they're pretty tough, and they come up even when the weather's cooler than I always want to be outside. So if you haven't planted your spring bulbs or started thinking about them in the warmer areas, it might be time to do so. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.